Hello, hello, and here we are at your next daring adventure, which is actually part 2 of the Lifeline. And we trust you had a really good experience in coming up with your Lifeline, that you may have had some ahas, some insights, some learnings. And if you did, we would like you to take the time right now just to sit down and reflect on them, celebrate those wins, even the smallest of wins, celebrate it because it's so important. And write down maybe what has changed from the time you started Her Daring Adventure to today. What changes have you seen in your life, positive changes? Because sometimes we just roll right over them and we don't even realize that we've made these changes. So take the time to reflect. So we're going to go right into part 2 of the Lifeline process, which is going to take you even deeper into understanding the meaning and what is meaningful to your values throughout your life. So Lisa, take it away.
So first, the purpose of this exercise is to see how your values connect to your highs and lows on your Lifeline. And so we're going to go back to my Lifeline from before, my wonderful little Lifeline there. And so this is your next Dare to Act adventure. So you're going to attach a value to your highs and lows. And I'm just going to read off here first some of the questions you're going to ask yourself to get to those values that you're going to attach to the highs and lows. So what was meaningful to you about each high point? What was meaningful to you about each low point? And for the lows, get all the blame of people, circumstances out of your system and ask, was there something of value or thought that was violated or ignored at the time? And so for an example on mine, so walking to kindergarten by myself when I was 6 years old, that value was independence. At 6 years old, I felt independent enough to walk to school by myself. So then if we go to the next one, the low point, my parents divorcing, that also taught me that I needed to be independent. I didn't want to have to rely on a spouse or significant other for my dependence. I wanted to be able to live and thrive and survive on my own and choose to be with that person because I wanted to. And my parents divorced when I was 10, but I just remember looking back thinking, I want to be independent. I want to have that independence.
So also, if you don't find a value specifically that you could attach, look at what does this incident bring up? Is there a thought? Is there a feeling? Is there emotion? Is there something that kind of overrides what this means to you? What does this item mean to you? And go from there. So sometimes it may not be a specific value, correct? Mm-hmm. It may be something else, but there is something connected to that incident.
Some type of meaning to that.
Yes.
Something that's significant or something that it represents is another way to look at it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So if we look next at me giving Josh the ultimatum, there's a couple of my values that go with that. First was I took my own power back. So that was my warrior spirit, my protector. I was protecting myself because going through his addiction, I gave up a part of who I was. And so that was claiming my independence back. So independence was also another value.
So what's interesting is that's a low on your chart, but actually it's a very powerful plus.
So it was a low and a high.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Going through it at the time, it was a low. But yeah, it was also a high. So independence and protecting myself, if that makes sense.
That makes sense.
So then when we go to when I was 16 and having my own apartment, so we're kind of going backwards in time here, there's 3 of them I can put there of my values. So one was adventure, 16 and having your own apartment.
Big adventure.
Yeah.
Big adventure.
Well, 16-years-olds want that.
Right? It's a dream.
It was also independence, and it was also courage.
Yeah.
So 3 of my values fit into having my own apartment at 16. So then when we go to when I was burglarized, that violated my protector spirit. You know, I allowed someone, well, I had no control over it, but someone broke into my apartment and took a bunch of stuff and burglarized it. And I felt violated one of my protector spirit.
So that's the question of what value was violated
What value
on your
was
lows
violated.
or ignored.
So you're going to go through this process and just assign a feeling, a value word, or a meaning to each high and each low. And you'll start to see a pattern emerge.
Yeah. It really explained to me why some folks can go through a similar type of experience and have such different reactions. So you said your parents got divorced. So how some people can absolutely just fall apart when their parents get divorced, and others it's just a little speed bump in the road. And it really goes back to those values. For some, it might not have violated a value.
Right.
It might not have been a significant event to them that impacted them. To others, it violated a value and they had a different response.
Yeah, and it's just bringing that awareness to mind.
Right. When I did this exercise and I was looking at my lows, I saw what was common in several of my lows was that I didn't trust myself. And so I don't know that that was specifically to a value, but it was very important in discovering later what was most meaningful to me.
Well, you're looking at the insights and the lessons
Yes.
that it brought up.
Yes.
That is our Dare to Act.
Short and sweet, but it's also going to be powerful. And take the time.
Yes. So this again is another layer of discovering what's most meaningful. When we did this process, we've all done this process. I still have it today as I refer back to it. And it was a very freeing exercise for me because it actually, for the lows, put me at cause. What was it that I did, or what didn't I do, or what was it that it's not somebody else that's doing this to me? What in me caused this to happen? So it was very freeing.
The other thing that I think can easily be missed in this is when you hit the low, the positive side of that is you had to do something to get yourself out of that low and to get back up on that high.
Exactly.
You know, and above everything. And so there's probably a lot of wins sitting there that you've never really fully acknowledged, because it takes a lot of courage and it takes a lot of to like rise up from that low place and get back on top again.
It goes back to reframing the minus into a positive, the minus into a plus.
So look for those wins.
Yeah. So to that point, as you're looking at your lows, we talked a lot about taking the minuses, turning them into pluses, looking at mistakes as learning opportunities, the precessional effects. So again, start to reframe that these lows may not really be lows at all. They may be incredible learning opportunities along your journey. Okay, so that's the Dare to Act. And again, we're going to remind you about your rituals. We trust that you're practicing at least one ritual from your list a day. Again, if as you're working through this, if it does get a little heavy or you get a little stuck or you need a little breathing room, go back to your list of your 5 to 7 relaxing or fun things to do, and you might want to just take a break and say, I'm going to go do that today, and then come back to it. So oftentimes if I'm laboring over something, I need some air and I need some breathing room, and then I come back to it and it flows easily again.
Exactly. This does not have to be done in one sitting.
No,
Take
I don't
several
recommend
days
that.
to do it.
We don't recommend that. And again, information. You've got the information. You're going to do your action on it. There's going to be feedback on how you see yourself, the reactions, what comes up for you, and the incubation as you take your walk in the woods, take a walk on the beach, meditate, journal. Taking time for yourself to let all of this sink in is such an important part of the process, so please do not skip over that. Make sure that you do that as often as possible. And when we see you next adventure, we're going to pull this whole thing together. So that we love that you've come with us this far, and we've got just a little more ways to go. So we'll see you next adventure.